What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. This is Best Served Podcast 166. Feels like family with Kris Komori of Kin in Boise, Idaho. Thank you so much, Kris, for being on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
All right. We're going to talk on this channel, Best Served fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices to the restaurant industry, to the restaurant model itself. And Kris has, some interestingly, I hope they're not unique anymore because we really need to be investing in people. But for sure, the industry norms, the industry that we came up with, we did not invest in people enough to our opinions. And so I'm fascinated to hear from you. So tell everybody before we kind of talk big picture stuff, Kin Restaurant, what specifically is that? What can people expect from you and your crew at Kin?
Yeah. So we're out in Boise, Idaho, as you mentioned. We were formerly at a restaurant out here called State Limp. It was a tiny little tasting menu kind of joint. And
that really put you on the map, just to totally cut you off as you're just getting rolling. But like State Limp, like definitely heard about it out here in Denver. Like it got a lot of buzz going.
Oh no, it definitely did. It was a little bit different for the area, the tasting menu kind of scene. And
yeah.
I think it was just like the timing was right. And I remember at the beginning of that when everyone in town was like, oh, Boise's not ready for that. And I didn't know any better. I had just moved to town from Portland. And we just did it, and we found out that, there were tons of people that were waiting for something like that, so we had a lot of support. And then, we got a little bit of recognition from that, and we kind of hit the ceiling of that space, like physically, the square footage of the place we kind of hit. And, honestly, we were also looking at the amount of revenue that we could bring in through there. And our crew was still working pretty long hours. And ceiling wise, not only in square footage, but in the amount we could make, we had hit it. So we knew that in order to pay our people better, we had to find new digs and kind of grow a little bit. We weren't looking for a ton, but just to stretch it out a little bit to give it back. So we were looking around town and we landed in this new location downtown, which is a great spot. We're super lucky to have it. And a lot of the crew from State Limp actually came with us, kind of lived through a nomadic couple years, having a real place. And that's where Kin, the name, came up. Like I said, we feel like family, and that name really stuck with us. So.
The concept, though, very different. You're not doing small tasting menu focus, or is that the concept? Like, why didn't it become State Limp 2.0 versus Kin? Give us a little bit of that.
Well, the concept is actually that we would split into two types of restaurants. So one is still the tasting menu side, and that will eventually, once we can get that open, it'll still be 6 to 7, 8 courses, however we see that going. But it's also split with a bar, so an actual cocktail bar that's more centered around the beverage side of it.
And that's what's behind you there?
Yeah. So more like small plates, a la carte, shared stuff, that kind of thing. So we will still do the tasting menu thing, and we hope that will be kind of like the heart of the place, with a lot of the bar side sort of driving the business a little bit more as well.
Gotcha. So Kin is kind of encompassing a little bit of like multiple experiential opportunities for guests within that space, and clearly not open yet, correct? Give us an idea of where you're at in the timeline. It's always harder, takes longer, and costs more money. We know that from restaurants, but kind of where are you at? 2 weeks? Yeah, totally. It's always 2 weeks from now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if we're ready. Right. I say we're not 2 weeks. We're probably 2 months, 6 months. I'm not sure how it is out in other areas of the country. We've been following, but not super closely. Out here in Boise, we are dine-in restaurants are allowed. Okay. However, in group sizes of 50, kind of in gatherings. However, we have decided as a group that we're not opening up inside. So while we have this shiny new restaurant that just got done, it's really just the best looking storage unit you can find in town.
Yeah.
But outside we're open. So on the patio, we are lucky. We have a huge grass area that's almost like a natural amphitheater. And we do have some patio seating. So we've been just started a little a la carte sort of bar service. And we've been doing events like with bands and local dancers and things like that. So
Nice.
We've been charging. We also do this delivery system at home where it's a 4 or 5 course meal that, we do basically 90% of it. And then we shoot a couple videos, type up some pretty in-depth step-by-step, and then we send it out to people and they get to kind of finish it at home. It's actually pretty fun. And we still have a connection.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's cool. It's been really well received.
So people can do multi-course tasting menu at home.
Yep.
I like that. I just saw Grant Achatz was doing a video, of like how to plate his dishes at home. And it was so funny. I was watching it. I was like, yeah, of course that looks simple for us, but man, that's still super complicated. Like I could tell they were trying to, it's hard to dumb it down, but simplify it so somebody at home could do it. And still simplification for them was like as far as high tech as like guys like us are going to go. So I was like super fascinated to watch that. But I think it's important because people want to bring your brand in their house more and more. So I think it's a very, very smart play. Let's before we get into everything about the concept, let's go back. When did you first catch the hospitality bug? When and where did that start?
Yeah, I mean, it was from early on. I went to college out in Idaho, and that's kind of what brought me out here. And I'm 17 and I started washing dishes through school.
There you go. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't leave that restaurant all through college, and it was washing dishes, prep cooking, then moving up. And I eventually just kind of landed out in the front of house. And I did that for a long time. And I graduated from college and I was kind of like looking down certain paths, and none of them felt quite right. And I decided to just kind of apply for culinary school, and I was off from there. So went out to Vermont actually to go to culinary school, and made it back to the West Coast. I'm kind of a West Coast, Northwest kid. So little stints in Seattle, and then a pretty long time in Portland. And that's kind of where I got my chops there.
Yeah. A couple things. One, doing front of house, do you feel like that gave you a perspective to be a better chef?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
good. Yeah.
Even in Portland, I was working front of house, doing retail as well. And, like that connection with the guest is super important because, like, as a chef, as a kitchen, we're trying to create good food, but really more than anything, as a restaurant, we're trying to create the experience, right? We're trying to bring an ambiance, and we're trying to care for the people that are coming in the door. So if you can see all the sides of it, it definitely makes it better. We talk to our kitchen crew all the time, like, hey, you have to go out and talk to the guests. You have to go out and serve food. Not only is it important for them to understand the guest perspective, but it also helps empathize with what servers are going through, right?
Yes.
So when someone comes back and they're like, hey, I need this on the fly, you're like, maybe you're still a little jolted and a little upset about it, but it's not.
Yeah. A little attitude.
Yeah, totally.
I think I've wanted to give you opportunity because I could tell that was important. It's same for me. I recognized when I spent time out front, and even was the general manager at a place that I was the chef de cuisine, because I wanted to bring the excitement that we had in the kitchen to that level in the front of house. So I said, I'm gonna go put on a suit and go out front. That was crazy, but I think it's important. I really, really think it's important because too long and too often in the kitchen, guests are just nameless, faceless assholes that have weird requests and send back food.
Yeah.
Like you never get a relationship with them. It's why the open kitchen is singularly the greatest thing of the chef-driven restaurant, was the open kitchen where you can create a personal connection and relationship with your guests. And I think it's super important. So I appreciate you saying that. Portland, what are the couple of spots that you worked at in Portland? I'm a big fan of Portland. This might be the first year in quite a few years that I don't make it to Portland.
Right. I started off at a place called Park Kitchen, and I was there for quite some time. It's now closed, but that's definitely, that crew is where it all started off for me.
Molded you.
Yeah, totally. Scott Dolch was the chef there, and David Padberg was the chef de cuisine, and it was those guys as well as just the crew in general. It was a lot of people my age or even younger than me that had way more experience than me at the time, and they kind of helped show me the ropes. And from then, I did bounce around to a lot of other places, but it was always through that little network.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense to me. All right, let's talk about Kin a little bit more. So feels like family. The name of Kin is very much there. And it was actually Katie Osuna and listening to her show, amazing show. Katie Osuna is the host of Copper and Heat podcast, James Beard award-winning podcast. Ricardo Osuna on the ones and twos, they're like the Radio Lab of podcasts. Really, really high design, really amazing stuff for sure. And I listened to the episode. She had recommended listening to you guys, and it was very much a conversation about how we invest in people. Not only the ways that we can, but the massive struggles and challenges and roadblocks to actually doing that. So I want to get into that a little bit, because I think the way that you were thinking about that and the struggles that you had in that are so relevant and so important. So let's get into that. When you think about investing in people, just start us somewhere. Where does that start for you? Why was that important?
I mean, it wasn't ever something that we really could put down on paper, right? It's more of that general feeling. I mean, it's like you spend so much time with each other in a restaurant, kin, family. It's like, yeah, I have little kids, and I got a family at home, and then I got this second family out here. To be honest, I probably spend more time with them, right? So
absolutely. First
of all, you want to be around people that you like, that you can get along with, that you can bounce ideas off of, but also, you got their back, they have your back. That portion of it, I think the camaraderie of restaurants is what draws a lot of people into it. We need to make sure that we can make that a sustainable relationship and continue to make it a place that people want to be at. I know that, turnover in restaurants is crazy. So there is a financial side of it that you can track, and that is
73% turnover rate.
Yeah. And it's crazy. And, the cost of retraining someone isn't just financial, it's like emotional, and it's just like the stress level of watching it happen over and over. Yes. So it's really important to dive in and keep people around.
And so when we're talking right now, and you and I have talked before, obviously it makes so much sense, yet we're always trying to pay people less money. There's always this race to the bottom of like, can I get somebody for $12 an hour? And it's like, why is that the goal? And it's how we came up. And sometimes you talk about the family and the camaraderie. I also feel like that's also been utilized. Passion. We have leveraged people's passion in the industry as an opportunity to pay them less money. And so there's like this very polarizing effect going. And, I know you know what I'm talking about, and you've dealt with it on being on the getting paid not enough side of the equation. How did you go about them practically when razor thin margins? And you talk about that a lot in that episode, razor thin margins and the cost, even though it's a high ticket item for your multi-course tasting menu, your margins are still razor thin as well. So how did you go about practically? Take us through the process of saying, I'm not going to try and pay somebody $12, $13 an hour. I have to be at 15, 16, whatever that number is. And obviously it's dependent on your market. So second family, how do you invest in them from a business standpoint? Let's get into that.
I mean, first off, we just make that, we take a stand on that, and we say that that's going to be a priority. And then the menu development, the way we sell things, everything, it has that in the fold from the get-go. That helps. Right now it's crazy, and every restaurant is shook. And so we're not paying as much as we'd like, but we're still holding on to that ethic of that's what's important. And then beyond just the paycheck itself, there's a lot of ways that you can still bring value, not to the employee, and that's what we hunker in down on. It's little things. Family meal is a very common thing in restaurants, but that is a huge benefit.
Yes.
And I know a lot of places that don't do it, and people are surprised when you do. And it's like one family meal, two family meals help out with that kind of thing. It's getting financial advice, actual professionals to come in and help. It's pushing towards getting insurance and those things. But then at the same time, it's also giving cooks and bartenders and everyone creative freedom and entrusting in that, because for a lot of young cooks, that's what they want more than $1's worth of a raise. They want a little bit of responsibility and control and the ability to create and to be trusted in. So that's like when you invest into your family, into your crew, it's that, it's teaching them the numbers, teaching them the P&Ls and the finance, because if they want to go on to open their own place, they need to know these things. And we're very transparent with our crew about it.
Smart.
We're like, here are the numbers. Here's why we're paying you this much. And this is why we can't pay you more right now. But as we grow and hopefully we get through all this, those things will come. But there is value in the educational process as well.
Could not agree more. Investing in people, investing in your crew is a massive part of some of what we work on. I think about it in 4 buckets: wages, benefits, education, culture. Sophie is on it. Wages, benefits, education, culture. You need to show your team that you're investing. And a lot of times you give them the opportunity, say, hey, here's how much money we can invest this month, this quarter into you, into our human capital, into who actually makes it happen, right? It's not what's on the plate, it's who gets at the plate that truly matters. And so this is an opportunity. And if they have livable wages, then a lot of times they say, nah, you know what? I don't need that extra $1 an hour. What I want is maybe a little bit more of our health insurance paid for. What I want is the education opportunity, and it's a butchery class. What I want is the culture, and that's allowing me to have more freedom and put my name and stamp on a menu, on a dish, on a drink. So I'm a big believer in that. Now, struggles. Like, it's easy to understand why somebody is trying to control and cut prime costs, right? Their food costs, their pour costs, their labor costs, because direct labor is the biggest cost in a restaurant. So I get it. Yet you're cutting your nose to spite your face. You're paying somebody $3 less than you should, $2 less than you should, and they leave in 56 days. And then you have to pay that money into the system again. And then you're paying that money to, I don't know, Indeed or Craigslist for ads instead of your people. And it's a wash anyway. So yet it is a huge struggle and a challenge. And even for you, I know you had to lay off some of the crew that you were bringing over to Kin, like massively gut-wrenching thing to have to do. And then it's easy to say, well, look, you couldn't invest in your people either because there's just not enough money. So let's get into that a little bit. The reality, and still the fact that you are saying we have to be steadfast. We need to figure out a way to not go back to what we were before. We need to survive this moment, yes, but we need to invest into the future. So give us a little bit of how you're going about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just flash back to that terrible time that most restaurants, and honestly, probably in the world, went through, which is, when we find out that there's statewide shutdowns of restaurants, right? So it's kind of funny now. We got occupancy of our new space the day after restaurants in Boise got shut down, right? So,
that's like a slap in the face. It's like, it'd be better if you just didn't get it.
Yeah. You push so hard to get the doors open, and then it's like, cool, we can open them, kind of. But we were watching it, we were tracking it happen on the West Coast out, still contacting people in Portland. It almost felt like we were talking to people in the future. So we got to jump on it, and we knew it was coming, and we laid everyone off. So everyone that we had just hired, we laid them all off, and we said, hey, we're going to do this now, so maybe you can get a head start on getting unemployment.
Yeah.
That was step 1. And then step 2 was finding out a bunch of people didn't actually qualify for unemployment. And at that point, we said, well, it's not like you're going to find a job in another restaurant. So what are we going to do? We knew that we needed to bring money in, not just for rent, but to keep them with money in the bank. So that's when all these plans that we've been doing just started coming about. It was out of necessity, more than anything. It was reacting at the time, and now we're beginning to adapt through it to make those programs a little bit more sustainable. The big pressure I feel of investing so much in people, especially currently in this climate, is that everyone is emotionally spent.
100.
The issues of getting burnt out in kitchens is one thing, but now everyone is there's just way too much happening, So now not only do we invest financially, but we have to be very aware of everyone's emotional state and emotional health, right? And that, just like the finances is a conversation, so is that. And they're heartfelt conversations. That's part of the family, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're hard, but we have these sit downs, and it's like, they're check-ins. How you doing? How's your stress level? Do you need a little time off? Do you need to just go out, get out in the woods and go camping and clear your mind? So those are the things that we're investing in now. it's still the people, but it's
I
different.
want to hover on that for a second. What you just said, like, really struck me is you need a little bit of time off. This has never, ever been a part of the conversation. It's like, if you're not on 70, you don't give a shit. You're not as dedicated as I am, right? And it's very interesting. I was always having the conversation like you're having, yet I was creating a scenario where I would put on myself 70 hours a week so somebody else wouldn't have to, right? Yet what you're doing sometimes in that scenario is you're showing that they feel guilty. Even though you're telling them that you want them to work less, the fact that you're not working less makes them feel guilty that they're not working less. And so you're perpetuating the cycle. And so I'm telling you that I want you to take a vacation, but I'm not taking a vacation. So then they're like, well, I'm not taking a vacation. And it was just like this downward spiral. And I could just see in your face, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so many of us do. So how are you balancing that? You need to be there all day, every day. You're the bottom line. You are the last line of defense. At the same time, you also need to lead by example. So how are you balancing that? I mean, you said you have young kids too. Like, what is that like?
Well, I mean, right now it's not the balance that we'd like to be. You know, we had that in the forefront of like myself and my business partner, Ramy, for us to both get time. At the same time, we're still opening a new restaurant. So there's a little bit of that amongst the chaos. I mean, we're definitely here too much, but we make calls here and there. We're just like, hey, no one's coming in today. You know, no one's coming in on this Sunday or whatnot. And what we've done though is in the kitchen, we have everyone, well, most people are actually on salary so that we know that they can get a set amount. They know that they have like this amount coming in. We schedule to actually just run about 40 to 45 hours a week. And part of that is so that they see like, oh no, this is a totally different system. But the other part of it is that we know if someone has a positive test or just needs an emotional like health related day off, then we can have another person come in and they're not running 70 hours, they're running a 50-hour week that week. And then next time when it happens with someone else, you know, then we're not building a system where all of a sudden it's snowballing and everyone's getting overworked and again overstressed. So we're trying to build that into the system from the get-go.
I like how you had the check-ins. I'm interested in the things that have become kind of the norm, the way we go about our day-to-day in the industry, and then some of these new things like a health check-in, a wellness check-in, a mental health and emotional health check-in, and making it still feel like kind of the run of show the way we're used to. And so I've been talking about like pre-shift. Make a check-in, just a simple, quick pre-shift. What's happening? What's going on? Where you at? Where you at? And what are the specials? And what's the low calls? What are you 86th on? Like all of those things, as it just becomes kind of a normal thing versus it feeling like this really heavy, like you're at an AA meeting and it's awkward and uncomfortable. And people are like, well, I'm not that. I'm just a little on edge today. And so the simple interaction of making it kind of normal run a show, I'm fascinated in that. And I like that you just kind of made it a check-in. You know, I
mean, definitely. It's a new thing that I'm adapting to as well. You know, I'm learning that this is, when people talk about pivoting and navigating around this new environment, you know, like for me, I realized in relatively recently that what I need to learn personally is not necessarily a new cooking technique or something like that. It's like, no, how do I grow emotionally? Yes. How do I connect with people a little bit better? You know, and that is like from a cook's mentality, you're totally right. Like build it into the system. You know, we're all about being prepared for the next day and like that kind of thing. And it's
Mise En Place, man. That's it.
Totally. It's the exact same thing. It's just a different project you got to work on, you know?
That's it. We're going to work on this, Kris. Mental health Mise En Place. We're going to brand this thing. I think it's so important. Sophie, mental health Mise En Place. Get that up there. I think there's a huge opportunity. These last couple minutes, I want to talk about some people. I love that you acknowledge several people. So you mentioned Remy. You know, yes, mental health Mise En Place. It's going to be an important thing for us to just have our shit in a row. Like have your everything in place, and that includes you here and here. Absolutely, Remy. What does it mean to have your business partner? What does it mean to have a strong anchor on the other side of, you know, this equation, which is totally crazy industry we're in, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, so Ramey was one of the owners of State Limp. So we had almost a 5-year run there with me in the kitchen and him in the front. And so we knew that we could work alongside each other. And it's one of those things, and it's almost like it's like a business marriage. We have our tips here and there, but we've been together and so close so long that we know how each other works, and I know that I can always trust him to pick up where I can't, and vice versa. So again, it's the trust, and it's the trust in each other that we want to have with our employees, and it's like I said, it would be built on a lie if we didn't have it ourselves. So. That part of it's really important. And he grew up here in Boise, so he's got a good network amongst.
He understands the city really well.
Yeah, and he's a cyclist too, so he knows the benefit for him to de-stress is to get on his mountain bike and go hit the trails. And so that part of it is really good for everyone here to see, because they see him come in with his bike and his gear, and they know, like, cool, you got your mental clear.
Yeah. You know exactly where he's at just from seeing that. I like that. That's the quick check-in. You know exactly where you're at because there's that trust and confidence. So, and then you mentioned it's a restaurant, a business marriage. You have an actual marriage, and I know, man, I mean, what an important thing it is for a chef to have that counterbalance, because you're working crazy hours. The stress is super high. So what does it mean? My ever patient wife. Like, let's give a shout out to Allie, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, she actually worked at one of the first restaurants I worked too. So she dabbled in restaurants a little bit, and we've been together for a long time. And she's watched me go from basically that prep cook all the way up to where we're at now. So yeah, she knows the time constraints. She knows the weird hours. That's been our relationship. Now we do have 2 little kids. I got a little 4-year-old boy and a almost 1-year-old daughter. So
congrats.
That's a little more of a time constraint as well. So she's great though. She's just like, I understand. Go do your thing, especially now. And
I love that. She's
a physician too in the hospital. So
wow,
she's got her own stresses that I try to balance back with her. So it's just like everything, man. It's just keep talking, and you keep trying to see the other side and make sure that you're on the same page.
All right, I want to throw one more shout out there. You mentioned Woodland Empire Brewing, who I know of. So, talk about why is somebody like that important to you?
Oh, well, we just as an example of collaborations and partnerships, amongst local businesses. Rob and Keeley's the brewer, and they just they've always seen things similarly to us. We have our differences for sure, but like they love using local ingredients and forage stuff, and we love just geeking out on things together. And they're a really small business, and they've had their struggles, and they're like a group that we can get together with and vent and really be close with, like we have conversations where we're brought to tears in all this, and it's really good to have other businesses that you can bring into that circle, and you can lean on, and they can lean on you, because as a community, Boise is really tight. And we're just like every community out there. I'm sure, everyone's got their pockets of who they're loyal to, but Boise is a very community driven little city. So we need all these small businesses to survive, and we can't do it alone. So we got to raise each other up.
That's a great way to end this show. Kris Komori, thank you so much for what you're doing. I really appreciate it. I know how unbelievably hard it is to run a restaurant. I've failed multiple times at it. And to just still be steadfast of like, we have to figure out a way to make it feel like family, to invest in our people. I think it's the leadership that we need. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking some time for being on the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. Cheers.
Yeah. Later.
All right, Boise. I love the energy, the vibe that Kris is putting out there. It always inspires me. I don't know anything about Boise. Yeah, I want to go. I need to go to Boise now. We need to get out there. We need to do a show at Kin. We need to talk to Remy. We need to get the whole crew in there because I think it really, really matters. And so I'm excited about that. This is the kind of leadership that we need. So Best Served Podcast 166 feels like family. That definitely we were vibing for sure. A lot of great commiserating on the strengths and weaknesses of how we came up in the industry. And thank you to Kris Komori. Thank you to Katie Osuna for making the recommendation. Again, Best Served Fresh. We're really digging in to fresh ideas, new approaches, best practices. How can we evolve the industry? How can we evolve the restaurant business model to work for the humans in hospitality that are in those businesses? I have that vision that we need to find a way for 65-year-old line cooks to be retiring from their 30, 35 years, 40 years in the kitchen with the proverbial American dream of the gold watch and the pension, to be able to have that be the industry norm. And it's just not, because we churn through people. 73% turnover rate. How do we invert that? That's the way that we invest in the future of hospitality. Truly believe that. All right. That is it for today. Appreciate you as always. Cheers.